Welcome everybody, Juan here, and today we have a very interesting event going to happen. I'm going to be here interviewing one of my colleagues, Bram Ochsendorf. He's here to my right. And what's going to happen is, well, he recently was one of the main authors of a data democratization white paper. And in that paper, he talks about all sorts of things related to taking one step higher into becoming a more data-driven organization. The idea of today is this webinar is going to serve as a complement to that white paper. It's going to give you some extra context, and we're going to dive into detailed suggestions and detailed examples. Now, we are going to be discussing, I'll be interviewing Bram, as I mentioned, and at the end there is going to be time for questions. So please, if questions pop up, I invite you all to write them in the comments. We might not answer them directly, but I promise you there's going to be time at the end for questions. And with that said, I would like to, welcome Bram.
Oh, thanks, Juan. Happy to be here and talk about this subject.
Pleasure to have you. So for those of you that don't know him, Bram works as a lead data scientist for Go Data Driven. And he is very passionate about a lot of the human sides of data. Now, the first time I actually spoke with him was about governance. And even since then, since that time, I could really tell that this whole data democratization topic was something important to him. But with that said, Bram, would you like to introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah, sure. Trying to get the...
We have some slides in the background.
Yeah, there you go. So, yeah, I'm Bram. I'm a consultant at Go Data Driven and lead data scientist. And at Go Data Driven, I help clients in a variety of ways. And I help them to organize and build their data teams, but also to create end-to-end data products, but most of all, I guess, to realize value from data, analytics, and AI. And I'm also on a personal mission, together with some of my colleagues and analytics engineering group at Go Data Driven, to accelerate the world's data democratization. That's why I'm really excited to be here today to talk about this subject.
Yeah, that makes two of us. Thank you, Bram. Before we even start with the content of this webinar, I think it's crucial that we're all on the same page. So I'm going to start it as a first question with, what is your definition of data democratization?
I think data democratization is really about using and realizing value from data and making people and businesses aware of the possibilities of working with data and to start using their data in their day-to-day work. And with democratization, what we try to accomplish actually is that these analytical capabilities of using data do not only reside within a small team of data professionals, but it's also, we bring these capabilities to anybody within an organization that wants to start using data. And I often use this this definition when I think about data democratization, and it's really about putting the right information into the hands of the right people at the right time, but also, very importantly, to help them to extract information, make decisions, and uncover opportunities directly.
Yeah. So it's really about making data ubiquitous within an organization.
Yeah, and allowing everybody to work with data.
Good. And now I guess it's time to address the most important question, which is, why should organizations even care about data democratization?
So, being a consultant at Go Data Driven allows us to work with clients across industries and sizes. And it also allows us to sort of spot sort of the main challenges that organizations often face when becoming or wanting to become data-driven and really take the next step. And what I try to list in this slide here, symbolized by this bottleneck, is some of the main challenges that we often observe. And of course, the first point that we mention here is the divide between business and IT. This is a really important thing that we see when people or organizations want to take the next step. And concretely, what I often observe is that there's a small or central team of IT or data professionals that curate data for the entire organization, from the sales department, the marketing department, finance department. And at a certain point, that small team of data professionals simply cannot keep up.
Work in a silo.
So IT and business really working in silos, and symptoms of having like a very big divide between these departments are, for example, data not being available towards the organization, really like an engineering bottleneck, and a very high time to market of analytical use cases.
I think this one should be recognizable to almost everybody. I personally have had the experience of chasing the head of sales to ask him how exactly a certain promotion worked when I was building a data set. And I think everybody working in IT has felt that divide. I also see their lack of data literacy and awareness.
Yeah, so I think the first point actually immediately also leads to the second point, and that's because when you centralize these capabilities to a small group of individuals, it also means that practice and application does not reach the average sort of business end user. And because these people are not exposed to working with data on a day-to-day basis, what I often observe is really like a lack of overall literacy and awareness of sort of the possibilities of working with data.
I can also relate to this one. Even one time at a client, we ended up building a data set that already existed. And it makes you wonder, if we, the data team, were building something that existed, how can we expect the users to be aware of what's there or how to use it? And I also see the last point, and I think this is one that we're definitely going to agree on again.
Yeah, data quality, it's often a challenge at our clients when we try to help them. This is, for example, broken dashboards or wrong KPIs or angry stakeholders. I think everybody worked as a data analyst or as a data engineer might know what I'm talking about here. Data could be missing or incomplete or inaccurate or incorrect, and this leads to sort of error-prone data products, and it's often not clear who is responsible for ensuring data quality. And at a certain point, when your quality is simply not up to par, people simply stop losing trust in your data.
Correct, so having a person responsible.
Yeah, definitely.
Interesting. I think everybody here, if you have ever worked in IT or in data, can relate to these challenges. But now I would like to make a bridge to another topic that I'm personally very curious of, which is the making of the white paper. Now, those of you that haven't read it yet, it's definitely recommended. The link is probably going to appear in the comments, or you're going to see it in the description of the event. But let me ask you, Bram, what was the thing that got you interested in data democratization?
So I've always had a passion for teaching people how to work with data, and wherever they are on the journey of starting to use data in their day-to-day work. And I personally believe that everybody should be able to read, write, and speak the language of data. And I noticed that often there's sort of these barriers that withhold them from doing that. It could be technical barriers, it could be a knowledge gap or skill gap, but it could also be organizational barriers. And this is why at Go Data Driven, we're really on a mission together with our analytics engineering group to take away these barriers and accelerate the world's data democratization.
Interesting. And I also know this was, there has been a whole journey for this white paper ever since maybe the first ideation, the conversations you have had with colleagues like me, the conversations with clients.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a bit more about that?
Yeah, so the white paper, it started off, I guess, with working at multiple clients, and especially one of my most recent versions where I was tasked with the rollout of self-service analytics within a large retailer within the Netherlands. And I was working with a I think a group of very ambitious people who really want to skill up, and start using data, with modern BI tools. But we were simply sort of blocked by a bottleneck from in this case, the IT and engineering departments, and data simply did not get available to us for us to sort of start using data and make steps with regards to self-service analytics. And that's when things sort of started to click together in my mind. And I realized that you really need to have these foundational things in place when you want to make a step in democratizing your data, becoming data-driven. And I started talking with some of the colleagues at Go Data Driven, and also with some of the experts of our clients at Bol.com, Funda, and Interfood. And together we created this white paper that hopefully sort of embodies all of the knowledge that you need to have in order for you to make steps with regards to data democratization.
Indeed. So these challenges are relatable to every company, from smaller, medium, but also like some of the biggest companies tend to see these challenges. Like, I believe there is no company out there that has enough engineers to fulfill all of their ambitions.
Just try to get a physical copy here.
Oh, there it is. Now we have an actual physical copy of the white paper. Can you just show it?
This is the white paper. We forgot to get it out of the bag, but here's it.
Yeah. It's of course also virtual, of course, if you want to download it. But with that said, a little bit of the making of, and that is just a complete story for everybody. I think we're ready for the meat of this whole webinar, in which we're going to be discussing some of the most important figures of the white paper and some of the most interesting topics, according to me. And the first thing that I want us to discuss is, what are the components of data democratization? Or maybe more specifically, like, what are the signs that an organization is doing data democratization well?
Yeah. So I want to start off with showing this figure, which I think is one of the main or like the central figures within the white paper.
It's definitely one of my favorites.
It also shows what are the two main components of data democratization. And first of all, it's sort of making data available within an organization, which we see here on the horizontal axis.
That will be more the technical part, like writing pipelines and
a modern data platform, for example. And on the vertical axis, we see self-service analytics. So how do people actually use that available data to extract information and make decisions?
Yeah, so data literacy is kind of involved in there.
Definitely. And so having these two sort of main pillars or enablers, it allows you to plot your organization in this figure as well. And what we show here are a few example states of availability, self-service. And at state A, for example, you do not have any maturity anywhere in availability and self-service, and the business simply has no information available. But I think the typical first step that organizations take is making dashboards available to business stakeholders, and which is where you come to state B, where data is somewhat available. But the big jump that you make is when companies invest in a central data platform that is accessible for a central team of data professionals. I think this makes sense for a lot of companies, which you are at state C.
Yeah. I think at this point, everybody watching is trying to plot their own organization into this chart. And I can definitely recognize some of my clients and even previous companies in there.
And you can really see the trend here as well, right? So first, it's sort of making sure that you have the core capabilities in-house and you centralize the effort. But as soon as you sort of want to scale out and really scale your analytical capabilities, that's when you want to bring these capabilities also towards the business as well. Making sure that you create data and products close to where business domain logic lives. And so that's where the point where you sort of also scale up in self-service, enabling people to start using the data anywhere within the organization.
Yeah. I think companies that are currently in the C have a special place in my heart, which is companies that are a little bit engineer heavy. They have their data teams in place, but people are still not using data and they start wondering, like, what is the thing? It's a very interesting case. But yeah, I think this graph is one of my favorites, definitely. Now, I think there is another graph that is definitely worth showing, which is the long stripe.
Yeah.
Yes, this one. This one I think is also quite enlightening. Could you tell us a bit more about this one?
It sort of zooms into what we actually mean with self-service analytics. So it's sort of zooming into the vertical axis of the previous graph. And what we show here is actually a very basic version of a data supply chain, where data moves, from the real world on the left, when data is captured, through the IT and data domains, where it gets processed as raw data, clean data, all the way up into information. And on the right-hand side, it gets used again as information in the business domain. And what you see here is traditionally on the top, a lot of these responsibilities of processing that data, from raw to all the way up into information, it is being curated by IT or data professionals. And as I said before, as soon as companies want to scale out and really democratize the effort of using data, it typically forms a bottleneck. And this is why with self-service analytics, we try to bring some of these responsibilities, from the data and IT domain into the business domain by enabling people within the business to own a bigger part of this supply chain and enabling them to have more end-to-end responsibilities of creating their own use cases.
So you're essentially alleviating the engineering effort by allowing the data users to do a little bit more of the digesting data part.
Yeah, it can be. It really depends also what your role and responsibility is within the organization. For one person, self-service analytics could be starting to use modern data tools like modern BI tools, but it could also be some of your analysts that are within your business domain to work with raw data instead of prepared data, and work with raw data directly and enabling them to transform that data for the specific use cases. So it's really about, increasing that responsibility set, putting those into the hands of business users as well.
Definitely. The reality is that a lot of data people, regardless of what exactly your role is, people come to you with requests like, hey, can you pull an Excel of this particular set of customers? And all of those ad hoc requests really weigh in. So if there is a way that you can alleviate that and allow the users to pull up those lists from themselves, that could be an amazing time saver for every data person, regardless of what exactly your title is. Good. There is a next graph that I also really love, which is the one about the modern data stack. It has quite a lot of logos, and I think it's definitely worth bringing up.
Yeah, definitely. It's
this one.
Yeah. So whereas the previous graph shows you like what we mean with self-service analytics, and this is sort of really diving into how we can start making data available also within an organization. And what we mean with a modern data stack is, well, actually this figure shows you sort of selection of a lot of tools that you can bundle together, and together these tools can sort of fulfill the basic functions of a data platform, which is the ingestion of data, the transformation of data, and to the right also making this data available in a consumption layer through self-service tools. And what we mean with a modern data stack is that these tools together, you can click together into like a data platform, which is easy to maintain, to implement, but also to leverage. And thereby you sort of democratize its function, and you save on engineering time. And you can use that time, obviously, to do things that matter most, is that's increasing and getting value out of your data.
Yeah, and I've seen this. I think you can make a very mature data architecture without these tools. But the truth is, for companies that don't have an unlimited amount of engineering power, if you could call it like that, having these tools that are either fully managed or easy to use, or for whatever reason, maybe they're SQL native, so you don't have to learn another language, that really helps quite a lot when you're trying to build a data stack.
Yeah, so if being fully managed or low-code configuration, and what you said, like being SQL first, it allows us that these tools can be used by a much bigger audience than maybe with the previous generation of tools that required like highly skilled individuals to maintain such a platform.
Indeed. And yeah, this list is something that we pulled out based on some of the tools that we see at our clients. Maybe when we revisit this list in 1 year from now, it's going to look different. I think one space that is definitely going to look different, and it's maybe even worth a webinar in the future, is the one about observability. And I think since that was one of the points that we discussed earlier, why not bringing it up? Can you tell us a bit more about this space?
Yep. So data quality and observability, I think it's one of the most exciting areas that is popping up in recently. And observability is actually about ensuring that people can find, they can understand, and they trust or know the quality of data. And observability also means that you know how your data moves, for example, from A to B, who is using your data, to what purposes your data is being used. And it also enables you to monitor and sort of have this helicopter view of your data assets, how they're used, and assures the quality of data as well. And by having this helicopter view also allows you to enable, sort of enforce some of your data governance projects, which is really about, data governance should be about allowing people to use your data efficiently and safely as well.
And let me tell you something. If you have ever been in a project with and without data observability, you're going to notice a massive difference. There is a huge difference between spending maybe 2-3 hours in finding where exactly things become null in the whole process, to having a tool that directly points out, hey, these things are being casted into null, please check it out. And we just hope that companies start moving more into a direction of being proactive about their data quality. Maybe before we go to the last slide, well, I think this is a very interesting list for anybody trying to learn some new tools for their stack. Definitely check it out. I think if you master at least one of those in each of the spaces, you can become invaluable to any organization as part of their data team. But now I would like to talk about the enablers. And there is this slide which I really like because it really paints a roadmap. Can we show it? Yes, this one. Tell us a little bit about it, Bram.
Yeah, so what we try to visualize here, and this is actually where a lot of the things from the white paper come together, and it shows how you can start democratizing your data today. So the previous part of the white paper, it talks about these enablers specifically, but what we here also show is what are typical approaches that we have when we help clients through Go Data Driven and start taking the next step with data analytics and AI. And we typically help our clients through 3 different tracks: the organize, build, and train. And when a company comes to us and they want to start taking steps in becoming more data-driven, we often first assess where the organization is right now. Where you are right now, knowing where you are and knowing where you want to go to, something which is really important, having that sort of that starting point and also that dot on the horizon, right? And this is what we try to sort of encapsulate in what we call a data strategy. And a data strategy really gives you that starting and endpoint, but also a roadmap that sort of paints also the picture of what kind of things or enablers need to be in place, or what makes sense for you to start working on in the beginning, and what makes sense to do after in order for you to reach that end goal as well.
Okay, so you come, you do the assessment, and then you have okay, here is your plan or your strategy. Then I see the first step is indeed to ensemble a team, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the main things or first things that we always make sure, together with our clients, is that we have the right people and skills in-house for you to sort of have those core capabilities in-house for you to sort of build the foundation of your analytical aspirations and capabilities. It means that you need to make sure that you also have the people in-house that champion this effort, right? That really want to make this happen within an organization. Without ambassadors, it will be hard to also have the adoption from the business as well. But it also means that you need to think about people who have the core capabilities of leveraging some of these modern cloud toolings that we just showed before, and to start building the foundation to mature your analytical capabilities. Because tools and technologies change, but people and responsibilities as well.
Yeah.
And this is why we also see also new roles in modern analytical teams. And the most recent and most prominent of one, I think, is the analytics engineer.
Correct. Yeah, we at Go Data Driven, we firmly believe in analytics engineer being a team that is going to become central to enabling data and data democratization within organizations.
I think it's a role that sort of is capable of both sort of making high quality and trusted data available towards an organization by leveraging modern cloud toolings and analytical principles. But at the same time, this role, the analytics engineer, can also enable and train your people in-house to start using data and increase your self-service capabilities as well.
One thing that is also good to point about the team's part is if you use the modern data stack, then potentially you might need fewer people in your team. For example, back when I got started in the world of data, I remember I met a person whose job was to install, do backups, and do upgrades from databases. And if you think about it, that's something that most cloud databases already do completely automatically. So if you go fully hosted, maybe you don't need that person doing the upgrades anymore. And talking about modern data stack and tools, I think it's a good introduction to the next point.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. Like after you make sure that you have the team and the structure and skills in place, you can really start making steps in building as well. And what we often see as a main enabler of data and data availability is the modern data stack. And once you have the people in place, you can really set up that technology and tools to meet the future demands of data within your organization. And in modern, as I said before, the modern data stack, it's really easy to implement, maintain, and leverage, and can really accelerate the availability of data within your organization and reduce time to market of new analytical use cases.
Correct. Okay, and the next point up there in the list that I see is about governance, right?
Yep. Yeah, so those new tools and technologies, and as such a modern data stack, also you got to make sure that the data that flows through that data platform and sort of reaches your end users also can be used safely. And you have, again, that helicopter view of how your data is being used by whom, such that you also adhere to regulations such as GDPR. And it's really about facilitating a way to discover, use, and distribute the data within an organization as well. And with governance and observability, you lay those foundation of people can start using your data in a safe way, and also people trust your data as it gets exposed to the rest of the business.
All right. And working with a company that has this part right is completely a game changer. It might seem like an overkill, but just having a company where something breaks and everybody knows who's responsible or at least accountable to fixing it. And an organization where, like, if there is a data quality issue, there is a protocol established. It was like, okay, this person finds the quality issue, this person contacts this other one, and then the chain keeps on going until it's fixed. Having those protocols, and it's really a game changer. So I fully understand this. The next point in the list.
Data products. Yes, so I think whenever you have your people in place, whenever you have also the tools and technologies into place, that's when you really can start making an impact by creating your data products. And data products can be anything that processes data and produces results, and hopefully makes an impact as well. It could be dashboards, it could be high quality data sets, it could be machine learning models that influence an action of one of an internal or external stakeholder. Basically anything that uses the data and generates an output to create and expedite business value.
Like a stored procedure or a data test or something like that, I guess also would count a little bit. Yeah. And then we reach one of the points that is also very close to my heart, which is the data literacy.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's also one of the most exciting parts of the journey. Whenever we help our clients through sort of extended training programs and learning journeys to make sure that anybody within an organization can start using data. For one person, this could be, again, like starting to use modern BI tools. For the other, it's onboarding them on a modern data stack, make sure that they can use data directly, transform raw data into insights. It's about matching roles and responsibilities within an organization with tailored learning journeys and start scaling out the effort and make sure that anybody can start using data and democratize uses of data within an organization.
Correct. And for me, this is not only about just everybody has to go to this training and that's it, but it also requires some mentoring, like having somebody that sits with these people that tells them, this is how you write a data test, this is how you test your code, or even this is how you code. Anything along those lines, it requires quite a lot of mentoring and also quite a little bit of taking classes in specific. But so going back, it's fair to say that if a company just takes this roadmap, if you need, please get in touch with Bram. I think he's one of the type of people that is more than capable of giving you a more detail of this is exactly what your organization needs. But very generally, if you follow these steps, that's when you start maturing as a data organization, right?
Yep, definitely.
Interesting. So I think before we go to the questions, Bram, is there like a message you would like to leave to people?
I think whenever think about what makes sense for your organization right now. As I said, I have a personal mission to make sure that anybody can start using data in their day-to-day work. But make sure whenever you start the journey, make sure that you know where you are. Make sure that you know where you want to go to and what makes sense for your organization within in that progress. And please read the white paper if you're interested.
Yes.
And the white paper sort of gives you some concrete steps and talks about a lot of these things in more detail. And I think it also shows you what could be like the most concrete and sort of makes sense for you to start working on right now, and hopefully gives you a nice roadmap also to start democratizing your data today.
Definitely. So the invitation for those of you right now, right here is, well, one, if you have any questions, feel free to type them. It will be very interesting to have a discussion also with you based on whatever you want to learn more that we maybe didn't cover. But the other two invitations is, well, one, download this paper, give it a read. It has some very interesting figures as we saw. It has even much more than the ones that we saw today. It has some really interesting content and quotes. And the third invitation is, if you think this was valuable, well, also feel free to get this conversation continued directly with Bram. I think I'm talking for you, but everybody here at Go Data Driven is open to just hearing you guys out, seeing if we can help there, and well, perhaps get something cool started.
Right.
Sorry, I spoke for you. Good. Maybe let's check some of the questions in the chat. I see quite a lot of people. Good morning. So we have a question here from Simon. And let me read it to you. It says, data quality can sometimes be an abstract subject for decision makers that don't worry with raw data on a day-to-day basis. How do you convince them to invest in data governance tools? Ooh, this is a juicy one.
Yes, I fully recognize this as well, because data quality and it does not necessarily, contribute directly towards sort of a business value or business decision making, or like directly to a product that generates value for the company. But I think it's sort of a foundational part of any organization that wants to become data driven. And whenever you sort of can make it transparent how much downtime you have, for example, with dashboards that are being broken, if you can make it more visible on what the health is of your data in terms of completeness or accuracy, or again, having that sort of helicopter view that is enabled by some of these tools that we show here in the modern data stack. Those tools are actually focused on making it more transparent on what is going on with your data assets, who is using what, and where is your sensitive data as well. Because I think any decision maker would also be very interesting to know where sensitive data is, to adhere to GDPR regulations, but also to see what the health is of data in order to assess if data is used for effective steering of the business.
Correct. And maybe just one more thing to add. This problem of managers or whoever it is not caring about data quality, I think has been present ever since programmers invented unit tests. Some people are just like, no, that's a waste of time. We don't have money for that. Maybe one thing that works is nowadays there are quite a lot of monitoring tools that are absurdly simple to just really get them started. So maybe if you cannot convince them logically with like, hey, look at the time that we're losing here and there, my advice is pick one from the list that we just showed. Sometimes setting them up is gonna take you less than an hour. And in that case, a lot of people would say like, sure, what do we have to lose, right? So maybe just the fact that these tools are so easy to get started on your platform is something that might help. We have a second question from Rob Schneider, which is, do you see a role for, you're welcome, Simon. Do you see a role for metadata management platforms like Data World?
So I'm not aware of Data World, but I think a lot of tools that we showed in the modern data stack, they actually make sure that, or sort of the basis of it is that they use metadata to ensure the quality of data. And so I think there's already like a big shift towards using metadata to power some of these tools of the modern data stack. So where I'm not like familiar with this specific tool, Data World, I think metadata is becoming much, much more important as we move forward as well.
Indeed, and I'm also not very familiar what exactly Data World has to offer. But this is a space that is huge. And the fact that some tools, and well, I will name it with another example, DBT, is investing much more in their automated documentation, it's really making a huge difference. I aspire to see a future where most tools just generate a pretty decent automated documentation and just alleviate some of these things, because most people don't have the time, the patience, or they just don't allocate the importance to adding and keeping their metadata clean. So I definitely see a role for that. But me personally, I think it's gonna have to be like pretty much automated, so that at least it helps companies getting started and that it keeps it clean and actual. I hope that answered your question, Rob. Do we have something else? I see questions coming from the Q&A. Now, Rosal Santos asked, I think this is one that you're going to enjoy, Bram. If I wanted to become an analytics engineer, how can I start learning?
I think, yeah, that's an awesome question. Let me sort of give you my experience of also
Sure.
Sort of helping out also Go Data Driven in setting up our analytics engineering practice. So we've started that a little bit over a year ago. We're now with, I think, eight analytics engineers, just because this role is so much in demand right now in the market. And being an analytics engineer, sort of the analytics engineer that we have at Go Data Driven, they come from two different sides. It could be a data engineer, for example, that wants to move a little bit more closer towards the business and making sure that they work closely to where data is transformed into value as well and used by the business. Or you come from sort of a data analyst side and you want to become more technical. So previously, data analysts were sort of mostly concerned into turning data into information. But with analytics engineering, we want to bring a lot of these capabilities of that sort of a little bit of that engineering power into the hands of people to start work in a data warehouse directly. Because that's sort of a little bit of a context as well. These modern data platforms, they do not have ETL, but they have ELT, extract, load, and transform. And it means that data gets on a platform in its raw form before it's actually transformed. It also means that somebody who has technical knowledge and business domain knowledge can sort of work in a data warehouse directly and transform that data using, for example, SQL-first tools. So becoming an analytics engineering was a really big story, but becoming an analytics engineer, I think use some of these tools from the modern data stack. dbt is a great tool to start transforming your data while adhering to these modern analytical principles. And check out the white paper. It's also where we sort of explain the role a little bit more, which tools that we use. And I think this is a role that really pops up and is in high demand in the market right now. You see that all of the big technology companies within the Netherlands are actively looking for these kinds of roles as well.
Much more recruiters are looking for something like that. And maybe also my take as an analytics engineer as well is the easiest and laziest answer will be to just pick a handful of the tools that we just showed in the graph, start learning them. And in fact, we have quite a lot of content. Earlier we did a webinar on how to create a modern data stack, which we use different tools like this to create a pipeline. I mean, you could learn that. But maybe the more detailed answer is, if you come from an engineering background, try to get closer to your end users, try to get closer to the business, try to see what are the things that they want, what are the things that make them happy. See what are their frustrations with data, their frustrations with technology, and try to bridge that gap. So for engineers, it's important to get the perspective of what exactly is the role that an analyst is filling up, and why is the analyst much closer to the business than me. And if you're coming more from an analyst perspective, maybe somebody that uses Excel, Tableau, or Power BI or something like that. If you want to become an analytics engineer, for me, is the moment you realize that it's not about like the prettier of the prettiest dashboards or the coolest features, but rather start thinking in terms of seat belts. As in, I don't care about like the new features as long as these features are not around making my data more robust. Like, what features are these tools giving me to make sure that I can version control, make sure that I can check the quality of my data, and essentially start understanding all of these things that programmers have cared about for quite a long time. That is, I think, my answer of analytics engineer. But if that was a bit long, you can always go and check the list of tools.
I think we have another question.
We have a question. This one is anonymous. It is, who should be leading the project within the organization if they want to start democratizing the data? So IT, data science, or the business user?
Yeah, it's a really good question, actually. And this is also something that we also flesh out together with our clients, in this first stage, when we sort of look together at your strategy. But typically, I think there's no one size fits all answer to this question. But you need to have executive support as well. Executive support, funding, and this means that you need to have some really decision maker. And I also briefly mentioned that the ensuring business adoption of data democratization. It's also really about having people in place that sort of champion the effort. So having a combination of somebody high up who ensures funding and executive support, but also people on the ground who make this change happen, who sort of make people sort of believe in the possibilities of working with data. So having a combined effort of executive support and data ambassadors, so not necessarily from AT or data science or business users, you need to have like a team of executive support and data ambassadors to start ignite this spark and sort of make this happen and take steps. True.
So I also think it really doesn't matter who exactly is the person in charge. You're anyway gonna need some involvement from all of the teams that you just mentioned before. Even if the person works whatever, you still need some IT person to help you realize this vision. You still need the data team to help you realize this and so on. But the executive support is massive. I remember this company where I worked where the CEO constantly mentioned that their number one goal was to make clients happy. And so it became a mantra within the organization. If there was a decision to be made, the decision that got picked was like, this one is the one that's going to make the clients happy. And if you manage to get that type of level of support for data democratization within your organization, then things are going to happen much more quickly. If it's a unified vision that has stakeholders who are willing to indeed put some budget, but also put some focus and ensemble the right team to get it realized. For those people that want to get more into analytics engineering, what resources would you recommend them? Or what is your advice for them?
I think we also briefly touched upon that before.
Yeah.
I think there are really nice resources online as well. Look at sort of the DBT websites. There are tutorials there, but there's also like a seminal sort of article about what is the analytics engineering role. Of course, the white paper also harbors some of information as well on how to get started. But it's really about that game changer of putting more responsibilities within an organization, making sure that analysts and engineers, you bridge that gap between these two professions, and either becoming more technical as an analyst, working with modern data stack tools, or being an engineer and you want to be more closely towards the business. So I think a great place to start is either the white paper or look online on, for example, the DBT website or articles. That can get you started in your road in becoming an analytics engineer as well.
Indeed. It's kind of hard not to name DBT because I would dare to say that they're the people that popularized the term analytics engineer. Yeah. So I actually conducted some research on my own, and I noticed the first time somebody used this word, at least online, was in 2019. But it was since DBT said, like, you know what, I'm going to focus the content around this role, and I'm going to just really create a product based on this mentality or this philosophy, that the whole thing started booming. And now you see that quite a lot of tools are either aligned to this philosophy or like pretty much speaking directly to analytic engineers. Yeah. Some other recommendations is Fivetran has some amazing white papers where they highlight like what are some of the activities that bring value and not to a data team. Now Snowflake has also quite a lot of literature, so it's not that these tools are the only ones, but I think it's quite interesting how they are also like catching up to this philosophy and writing directly to, well, people that want to learn more about what exactly it entails to be an analytics engineer.
Yeah, so I think if you're interested in these modern tools, if you believe in technology being available towards anybody and to start using data, and if you also like to sort of and have a passion to help other people in using data in their day-to-day work, it will make you it's a great sort of the foundation of becoming an analytics engineer as well. It would democratize the world's data democratization.
Correct. And since we don't have any other questions, I think it's an amazing moment to wrap this webinar up. I personally had a lot of fun. Once again, you guys know it. You guys know what I'm going to say. But it is definitely a great resource. And with that said, I would like to thank you, Bram. It has been very nice to have you. Thank you so much for sharing some of the knowledge with us.
Yeah, so as I said, I'm really excited to talk about this subject. And it was really great having this opportunity to talk about it.
Perfect. And for those of you that are still out there, thank you for watching. We really appreciate you, and we hope to also take this conversation offline. So feel free to follow us on LinkedIn. Feel free to get this conversation started somewhere else. And with that said, so bye everybody.